My grandfather was listening shots, but actually not start a race. He was sweating and panting, his breath was heavy and his eyes were tearing, but he wasn't participating in the Olympics. He couldn't believe what was happening, but to understand it, we have to go back. My grandfather at that time was a 17 years old sophomore student in the CECIT 8, called the Boca 8, which is a high school affiliated to the IPN, one of the most important universities in Mexico. He had a friend called La Loca, what means the crazy, called like that because he always said that he was good at fighting, but he wasn't at all. His other friend, El Zanahorio, what means the carrot, called like that just because his mother used to sell carrots with tahin. Before that time, the universities UNAM and IPN had a little conflict, and the students went to the opposite different campus and visited the woman and hated the man. My grandfather wasn't an exception. He used to go to UNAM's campus with his friends to fight male students and flirt with girl students, but in one opportunity in which, fortunately, my grandfather wasn't participating, the police got involved. The worst is that police brutality in Mexico was very heavy in that time. The students, including my grandfather, were tired of the police brutality and from the lack of support for education by the government. A part of that, in that year, Mexico was going to be the host for the Olympics, getting the students mad because the government didn't thought that the students movement was serious and they were more focused in preparing perfectly the Olympics. Also, they invested a lot of money, making the students even more angry because they've been asking for that money for better education, starting protests from students to the government, in which the most of them my grandfather participated, with the goal of showing the world what was happening in Mexico. The government, watching their goal, started to suppress all the protests, no matter if were pacific, silent, or normal. Since the first protest, the government took the high schools 2, 3, and 5 of the UNAM and the vocational 5 of the IPN. My grandfather marched in the Zocalo during the silent protest. There was no sound. They shut everybody up. They were walking without doing any sound, but the government didn't care if it was pacific and silent, and sent soldiers that started to suppress the students, but they didn't allow it. Watching the government suppressing the students of the movement, more and more schools joined the protest, and even regular people joined them. The universities from all the country, no matter if were public or private, what was very impressive, and more in that time that Mexico was more classist. The international social media started to notice all the problems in Mexico because the IPN's coordinator committee of strike made the request sheet public through the social media, and that didn't like it to the government. The students planned another protest that will happen from the Plaza de las Tres Culturas in Tlatelolco to the Zócalo in the center of the city. The government knew this and sent soldiers to the place surrounding all the protest. The protest was about to begin. The heads of the protest realized something was going wrong, but it was too late. The soldiers started shooting the protesters, students, teachers, even housewives that went to support the movement. My grandfather noticed this and immediately told his friends to run, but his friend La Loca fell on his knees and started crying and shouting, "We're gonna die!" My grandfather, watching his friend with tears in his eyes and his voice broke, he decided he can't leave him there. So, with the help of his other friend Zanahoria, they take him up and started running. Unfortunately, all the people were running and pushing each other to escape, and my grandfather got separated from his friends. He started to shout them to see if he could find them, but he can't listen anything. The screams of the people horrified of the scene, the screams of the people getting shot, and the sound of the different shooting all over the place didn't allow it. The only thing he could do was run away and hope his friends were okay. He started running. He don't know how, but he ran away enough to get apart of all the people. But there was some soldiers. He reacted very quickly and hid under a car. He stayed there, listening to shots and people crying and screaming. He couldn't believe what happened. He waited to the perfect moment when there was no soldiers around, so he could run to his house. He started running so fast, like he was part of the national team for the 100-meter race. It was similar because his house was close to Tlatelolco, so he went running and got there fast. being safe. The next day, he saw in the news that Mexico was waiting for the Olympics like nothing just happened. He found out the police stayed in Tlatelolco the whole day and night, searching for the missing people that ran away and hid in the houses, killing them and the families that helped them. But because his house was not that close and he wasn't followed, he was safe with his whole family. The movement finished there. The remaining heads of the movement achieved a deal with the government to invest more in education and prohibiting the police nor the soldiers to enter any public university. The cost was really big, but the price was also big. Unfortunately, one of those costs was that my grandfather never met again with his friends and never knew what happened to them.